This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Gingerface, here with you once again. Thank you for being here, guys. Thank you to everybody who's finding the podcast and just binge listening. I see that happening on the stats, and it's really cool. I was just talking to the guest who's about to come on about the great thing about the show is that the content, Cops in the News is different, but the content is evergreen. You can just listen to, you can start at the beginning and go on, or you can start at the end and work your way back. It's all evergreen. It's all just the men and women of law enforcement telling you their stories raw and uncut, so you can gain a better appreciation for what it is these men and women actually do on the job. It never ceases to amaze me when I talk to these officers about police work. It's just super friggin' interesting. I've always been a smaller town cop, and when I hear some of these guys talk about what they do, it just blows my mind. So every interview I'm excited for. This one especially, we have a really, really great guest. He did 30-year police veteran. He worked for Atlanta and Suffolk County, New York. He's now medically retired from the profession. He suffered from PTSD and has healed himself with the help of plant-based medicines. He now works with first responders and military vets to cure their PTSD and various other traumas. Without further ado, let me bring on the great Mike Morgan. Mike!
Steve, thank you for the introduction. I owe you $55 for that myself.
I always say that, just so a little inside baseball, when I'm queuing up the intro, if I know the other person does live streams or podcasts like Mike does, I always say this intro is only $55 in Fiverr. I'm so impressed by it, dude. I just gave the guy my logo, and he just extrapolated it out. And he's from I think Brazil or somewhere. So yep. It's maybe $55 goes further down there.
Oh, my wife's, it's so funny saying that. She's on right now with a virtual assistant doing an interview on Fiverr. She's interviewing people, and the prices she throws around are like $7 an hour. I'm like, what?
I know.
It's unbelievable. But it's big money to some of these people in some of these countries, like Pakistan, making $7 an hour. I assume they're doing very well.
Oh, yeah. They probably have like 4 or 5 clients and taking care of their whole family with it, and you get a huge benefit. I hear about these virtual assistants. I heard they're awesome.
Yeah, they do everything. And the other day, I think she was on with one. It was 3 a.m. there, and this girl was working through the night. And my wife's, apologizing. She's like, no, I do this every night. Blown away. So I assume they do really well, but they're working their tails off.
Yeah, we need to get some of that work ethic back here in the U.S., my man. I know you were probably looking at the young officers coming in that were like, I do 40 hours, and that's it. I live above my parents' garage, and I need no OT for me.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was a seismic shift towards the end of my career at some of the guys and girls coming in, and the things that they thought that they were entitled to were just blowing my mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's crazy. I mean, my crew, the crew I work with now is good, pretty good, but there's a lot out there that are kind of like, hey, that's me time. Like I'm not, it's like there's no, I get it. You do have to have time off in police work, and we do get we get a lot of time off in police work. But, sometimes you got to put yourself, you're serving a community and it's a pretty important job. There's some things you kind of have to step up for,
Exactly. I'm hoping we make a rebound, but it's not looking good right now as far as society as a whole. Dude,
no, what does not hearten me is anti-TikTok cop on Instagram. I don't know if you follow that guy.
No.
He just takes all the cringy police dancing, female police officers get ready video type thing and just posts them on his Instagram. And he's got tens of thousands of followers now. They're just so. I think admin is just they're. Remember, in the early mid 2000s, it was like all these Facebook policies came out. You can't be in uniform. You can't do this. You can't do that. Yep. And then they were like, all right, well, Humanize the Badge came along, and some, Mike the Cop and the other guy there that kind of spearheaded that. And then was like, okay, maybe this can be good. And they started allowing it a little bit, tastefully. And now it's just like the floodgates are open. These agencies are just letting, I've seen cops lip syncing rap lyrics with the N-word in them in their cruiser.
Really?
And I'm like, this is, it's just distasteful. It's like, I want to think my cops are professional. I don't want to think they're listening to Too Short on the way to my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. What you said, the word professionalism is, it's in a vernacular, but it's not being used. It's kind of like falling by the wayside now. It's amazing some of the things you see these guys and girls doing.
Yeah, it is nuts. And on the other hand, like there are a lot of incredible people from the younger generation that are very dedicated and very fit and good for the job. I just feel bad for them because like when I was at Backgrounds doing them for LAPD, there was what I heard from the inside was like when you get the hard chargers and the guys that really want to get into cars and clean up the neighborhoods and do that stuff, the captains were like, hey, take it easy. Like you're going a little too hard. And they're getting gangbangers. They're getting, people committing felonies. And they kept squashing those guys. And it's like, well, they're going to go somewhere else where they can kick ass.
Exactly.
Like, they don't want to be community police officers that go to the high school and do a little dance number in the gymnasium. They want to get bad guys.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's when you find it, it's like almost like a diamond in the rough now. It's so funny you said that. I was talking to a 23-year-old just started. We were out to dinner on, I think, Friday night, and I met this kid, super nice kid, and he was telling me some stories. He's running dope, and essentially his boss is like, calm down. And, he's telling me what he's doing, and I'm kind of hitting him with questions to see if he's doing things correctly, and he actually knows the law, and he's got reasonable suspicion or probable cause. And the kid's answering everything correctly. So now I'm like, all right, it's not the kid. Now it's, just the supervisors. Everything's on camera. These guys don't want to be bothered with complaints because, as you know, if you're an active cop, you're getting complaints whether or not you're following a law, to 100%.
Right.
And it's just a sad thing these days. Everyone's afraid of litigation and complaints. And, I tell these guys, I was telling him, I'm like, listen, it may behoove you to go fed. You're not as watched. And that's what I recommend. And I hate having to do it. But if I get young men and women who want to do it, my first suggestion is go federal if you can.
Yeah, they're doing some really neat investigations, and they're like you said, they got a longer leash than the guy with the paranoid or over a litigious sergeant breathing over his shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. It's scary, but it's the time, sign of the times right now.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. You had a long career at two pretty big police agencies. Can you go way back to young Officer Morgan for your first hot call or the first call that really got your blood pumping?
I can. It was actually not a call. So this was probably about September of 94. So I went to the Atlanta Police Academy in November of 93, graduated in April, did our 8 weeks of field training, and then I was assigned to Zone 3. So now I'm in the most violent city in America, assigned to Zone 3, which is the most violent part of Atlanta. And we started on footbeat. And, most footbeats are in departments that are essentially boring. We were like balls to the wall, even being on footbeat. That's how crazy it was in Atlanta.
I bet.
But it was insane. So this particular night, two detectives. So we're on footbeat, but we turn out of the same precinct as the FIT team. We lower acronyms. So it stood for Field Investigation Team, and essentially it was an anti-crime street unit. So two detectives were working that night. They usually turn out 4. 2 guys were off, so they went to the sergeant. They asked myself and my partner, we were fairly new guys, 3 months out, if we wanted to work with them. We were kind of taken aback, like, we'd love to.
Yeah.
And they knew we were eager, we were pretty intelligent, we listened, and I guess they trusted us to go out with them. So the sergeant agreed. We go out, those guys, plain clothes, and it was crazy the way things were done back then. You'd never get a new guy these days and put him in street clothes and turn him out with detectives.
Yeah, you must have been like, yes.
Oh, I can't see, we were so pumped. So we go to an area in Southeast Atlanta that was notorious for heavy drug activity. And we get out at the spot. There's probably like 8 or 10 guys there. And everyone knew the 2 detectives really well. So we were just talking to them. Can I use profanity on this or no?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we were just shooting the shit essentially with these guys. They were cool. We weren't really searching anyone. We weren't going hard. We were just kind of see if we could get some intelligence. I think they were looking for someone at the time as well. So as we were speaking to these guys, they kind of encircled us, and it was nothing tactical. It just happened like that. And we're about 10 feet from the road. So a truck pulls up, and myself and my partner walk up to the truck. Unbeknownst to me, in the passenger seat is the drug dealer. He runs the hood. I never met him before, never heard his name before, but this is my introduction to him. So I had my flashlight in my hand. I shot it in the car, and I could see he had a Carhartt jacket on with a really big pocket, and the pocket's kind of open, and I could see the butt of a gun in his jacket pocket. So I opened the door, literally reached in, snatched that gun, threw it in my pocket, told him to get out of the car. For some reason, as he's getting out of the car, my partner stepped in between he and I. So he goes to put his hands on the car door. My partner's directly behind him, and he just elbows my partner in the face.
Oof.
Takes off, sprints on. It's him. I'm right behind him. He hits a corner, makes a right turn, and as he's turning, he falls down. Gets right back up. I catch up to him. He squares off of me. So luckily for me and unluckily for him, I was pretty proficient at fighting. I trained with a guy for years, and this was my first really fight as a cop. And it's so funny because you don't know at that point how high you should take the violence, or if it gets to a point, you kind of unsure yourself because it's the first time. Like, did I go too hard?
Yeah. I'm sure your adrenaline dump is huge too, so you might kill him by accident.
Yeah, exactly. I was pumped. And he throws a left. I block it down with my right hand. I come over, and I have my flashlight in my hand. I went to hit his collarbone. I went a little high, so it just went right over. But he screamed, he grabs it, and he bends down. I just clenched behind his neck, Muay Thai, and knee to the face, and just blew that grape up.
Nice.
And he was done immediately. And those guys that we have been speaking of, it was beautiful. So, yeah, I'll tell you about him a little bit after this, but he was a bad dude. And he got schooled that night, unfortunately for him. So the other guys see this, and they start going nuts, the 8 or 10 that we had been speaking to. He runs that whole crew. They start going nuts. People start coming out of the house. It became like a little mini riot. Cuffed him up, threw him in the van, and didn't get a chance to search him. He lucked out big time because he was able to dump, I think it was like 200 hits of crack in the van we found the next day because we searched it every day.
Yeah.
No one caught it because it was just mayhem at the time.
Yeah, yep.
But the funniest part of the story is he's on federal probation at the time. So a couple months later, I get a notification, federal revocation hearing in federal court, obviously, for him. So I appear in court. I'm testifying. His attorney and the prosecutor asked for a sidebar with the judge. So the judge is to my left. And I start looking around the room. And all of a sudden, he and I lock eyes. And then we're just staring each other down. And it got intense. And I meant to mouth, but I said out loud. I didn't realize I did this till I go, fuck you, out loud. The federal judge must have got whiplash because I could just peripherally, I could see a head snap to her right. She looks at me. I just looked to my left. I'm like, I apologize, Your Honor. Her mouth was like a gape. I looked at the prosecutor. The prosecutor didn't know whether to shit or go blind at the time. But it just kind of came out.
Oh, that's funny.
And that was it. And this guy ended up, still remember Ricky Giles, still remember the kid's name. He ended up, he had a lot of bodies on him, but no one would ever testify against him. And he had actually killed our SWAT lieutenant's brother.
Jeez.
Yeah, so the SWAT lieutenant had come to my precinct a couple of years later. I took him aside, and I'm like, hey, I just want to, first of all, give condolences and the loss of your brother. And just so you know, I told him a story. I'm like, I put it on him that night. So he's like, yeah, I appreciate that. But, yeah, bad dude, and I had no idea at the time. So that was like my first kind of introduction. And, like I said, afterwards, you kind of always doing like an after-action report. What did I do right? What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And you're unsure when you use violence for the first time, although he initiated. Did I use too much? Am I going to get in trouble? You're not sure where you stand. And, thankfully the detectives were unbelievable and helped me with the report and everything else. But, that was my first introduction to, essentially someone squaring off with me and it getting pretty violent pretty quickly.
That's crazy, brother. Yeah, you're right, man. Because it's, when you're growing up in schoolyard fights or fights as a young man, it's like you have that crazy adrenaline rush and it's like you're just doing everything you can to get through it. And you see the guys, and I've seen the guys that lose it. Like they're on top of somebody, and like thankfully when I was growing up, people did have some moral compass where if you see a guy on top of a guy that's unconscious and he's still punching him, you pull him off and you're, whoa, you got him, you got him. you're good. And it's like they're not doing it to be cruel. They are freaked out. Like this is either their first fight or they don't fight a lot, and they've had this dump of adrenaline, and they're not stopping. Their brain's not even registering that the threat's done. They're going to turn this kid's head to mush. You know what I mean? So when you're when you're a cop, it's like there's a use of force continuum. There are like, was I at the right level to do that? You know what I mean? Because I'm sure you thought like I had the flashlight in my hand. Well, it's a weapon of opportunity, but it wasn't a billy club. Was it okay to do that? You know what I mean? That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was calm the whole time, and that goes back to my training. I trained with a guy, and I called him the next day, and I was so calm. And it's one thing that I always tell, because I was a field training officer, my young men and women and recruits, I would ask them, are you proficient at fighting? And if they said no, I'm like, all right, nothing to be embarrassed about. But you not doing something from this point on is because you potentially have my life in your hands. You have your life in your hands every day. You have a family to go home to. It is incumbent upon you, if you do not know how to fight or to become proficient and comfortable with extreme violence, to get there. Because if you're not, you're going to make fear-based decisions. And I promised myself that was one thing I would never do. And I can honestly say in 30 years, I never made a decision out of fear. And what happens is, as you get better and better, you just develop this quiet confidence inside you. And you don't even realize that it's developing until something happens and you realize, holy crap, like I was so calm when whatever happened. And then you realize you could take on anything and you can handle it yourself. And it just, that confidence goes so far in so many different respects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see they're kind of, some academies still do boxing and stuff like that, which I think is good because it gives you the pressure and the adrenaline dump because your peers are all watching you and you're fighting. Even if you've never boxed, you don't want to lose. Yep. You don't want to look like an idiot. And, you don't want to be dominated by another person. But a lot of them are like kind of getting rid of that. Like they're not doing the real physical stuff, the real like wrestling or boxing or whatever. And I don't know if it's for liability or they probably don't want, because in academy you're in a weird stage where you're like on the department but you're not. You can just be let go. So departments that have are down a bunch of guys and they have a bunch of guys in the academy, they don't want to get a phone call, hey, this kid broke his collarbone, or this kid whatever got a concussion, or he got separated because X, Y, because of the fighting. I'm sure the chiefs have a role in kind of quieting that down, but I think it's really important to do it.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much you need to learn with in relation to arrest mechanics, and it's such a limited time in the academy. And even if they teach in the academy, if they have that little boxing block, it's so short, you're not going to become a proficient fighter. It's incumbent upon you, just like you need to be in the gym training, getting strong, staying strong, having your cardio in order. You see some of these guys and girls, and it's embarrassing, number one, the way they walk around. Number two, God forbid something happens. It doesn't even have to be a fight. You push in a car off the road, you could stroke out. They don't realize how hard their heart works because they're so big. You should not be obese as a cop. I've seen people lose their magazines because they were so obese that their mags got ejected. They're basically
the love handle pushed them.
Yeah. Unbelievable. In fact, something happened. I'm forgetting now exactly what happened with someone's taser. I don't know if she couldn't get out of her holster or it affected her body weight, affected the operation of the taser. And it was such an embarrassing thing. If I was this person, I would have been on, Weight Watchers the next day.
Oh yeah.
But I don't even think this person changed her program, and it was humiliating, or it should have been. Not to mention life threatening had it happen on the street.
Yeah, and it's not even like little podunk PDs. It's like you see videos NYPD with people like with their asses out reaching to control somebody, just grab their arm gently. It's like, get on the guy. What are you doing? Like, lower your center of gravity. You're all off balance. Like you can tell they're uncomfortable with touching somebody.
Yeah,
it's really weird and concerning, especially NYPD, where these guys are always getting in mix-ups.
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse for it, to be honest with you. I entered a very violent profession at times. Your life can be at risk the first day out of the academy. It could be 20 years in. Your day is going to come, though, and you need to be prepared for when it is. And thank God I always was. It's not bragging or anything like that. I put my time in, and, it's just, there's no excuse. I was just, myself and my wife, watching a video about an hour ago. This guy told this 19-year-old kid he was under arrest. And the kid's like, F you. And it was horrible watching the way he was trying to put this kid under. It should have been 1, 2, 3, put him down. And instead, this kid, if he had gotten lucky, could have overpowered that police officer. And anything happens at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of this, and I think like when you work in smaller places, your interactions with people that get physical are like way separated, like way far apart. I grew up, I took martial arts, I played contact sports, so I was always a rough and tumble kid. I can hold my own, but I don't really train. I do the kettlebell thing we talked about just to keep my heart okay. But I'm guilty of it. Like if where I work, if someone, and we do work alone, backup's usually pretty far away. So it's, I think about that sometimes. If you got into a scrap with a scrapper, like someone who could fight, it'd be rough. Like we just don't. So my hat's off to the guys who work in my county that actually do jujitsu and train and do that stuff regularly, even though we're not regularly getting in these kind of mix-ups, because you're absolutely right. It will happen. Just when, and it's almost worse out here because it could be 3 years from now where you're completely not ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why so many cops, they hop out of the cruiser. We'll ride around for 5-6 hours, maybe doing traffic or whatever, and you hop out of the car to fight, and now like every single one of your muscles is cold. Your joints are not warmed up. I'm 44. I mean, that's why cops go out like, I blew my shoulder, I blew my knee. It's like, really, that was just like a little wrestling thing. Well, yeah, the guy's 50 years old and he's cold and he doesn't work out or anything. So of course you're going to blow your back out almost immediately.
Exactly.
Because
anything can happen.
2020, we have UMass borders we border Amherst, Massachusetts, and they have UMass, which is a huge college, like, I don't know, 40, 50,000 kids or whatever.
Right.
And their PD is huge. They have mounted units. They have huge PD. They go to all the training, and but those guys, their clientele stays like 20-year-old football player style, and they just get older. So I'm like, man, you better grab yourself a lieutenant spot before you hit 50, because I don't want to be screwing with the drunk football player that's going to throw me over the bleachers.
Exactly. You just have to study so you don't get into those situations.
Absolutely. Mike, can you describe a strange or bizarre thing you dealt with on the job?
Yeah, so let's see. I will give you the craziest thing that ever happened to me in 30 years.
Nice.
It's funny because you can tell stories and you tell them to vets and they're like, yeah, okay. Anytime I've ever told this story, I don't care if it was 35-year vet, everyone collectively was like, holy shit. So this is probably like 2016. I think it's in either late fall or late winter. I'm back in Suffolk County, New York. Sunday night, it's about 7:45. Myself and my partner, we were in separate cars, but we had the sectors next to each other. Going to clear a meal in about 15 minutes. Nothing going on. That's when it's most dangerous, when it's just quiet.
Yeah.
So dispatch throws out a minor car accident with injuries to the next sector over. She had just cleared a meal. So I said, 220, keep her on a meal. I'll grab the call. So proceed to the call. It's literally about a mile from where I was. I'm going northbound. I could see it in the southbound lanes. Look like a typical rear ender. So make a U-E, come back behind the cars. There's an Asian male standing outside of the car that got rear-ended, and he just kept saying, he hit me, he hit me, he hit me. And literally after the 10th time, I'm like, all right, bro, I understand, he hit you.
I got it.
So I told him, yeah, I'm cool. Have almost 30 years on. I can figure this one out. So I shot my flashlight on the car that rear-ended, and I could see blood on the right side of his shirt, but he had a deployed airbag, so I figured it was just a deployed airbag. That was my first mistake. So I'm like, what happened? And he starts talking, he's slurring his words. I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm like, how much you had to drink today? He's like, I don't know, 5 or 6.
Great.
So I'm like, 220, have 219 come off for a meal, because there was no way I was handling the DV. So I do the car accident, she was going to have to handle the arrest. So I get his paperwork, both gentlemen's paperwork. Now it came up with a car accident injuries. So I'm behind them, right where the car accident started, a right turn lane started. So my partner parks there. I walk back to his car. He just pulls up. I tell him what's going on. The fire chief pulls around everyone and pulls into a business to our right. He goes up to speak to him and tell him what's going on. I proceed to walk up the passenger side of the first vehicle that rear-ended. I see the guy lean over, he grabs something off the passenger seat. As he comes up, I can see a knife in his hand.
Whoa.
And then I could just see him start making a sawing motion to his neck. I'm like, holy shit. So I scream to my partner, Frankie, he's trying to kill himself. So I run up to the passenger side. He locks the door. I run around to the driver's side. He locks the door, but on my little flashlight, I always have a window punch. I replace the end cap with a window punch. So, bam, I hit that window. If the entire window folds over in one shot, it was beautiful, but now I'm not able to reach in and open the door. Additionally, the lock itself is, once it locked, it's so tight that I can't grab the lock and open it.
Right.
This dude, now what happened was the blood that I originally saw on his shirt was from him cutting his throat. So I didn't know this, but we had arrested him the night before for DWI. I wasn't on the call. And then the guys had to fight him as well. They ended up parking his car in one of the fire departments. Actually, I think they pulled him over into the fire department. So they arrested him, left his car there. So what happened was he bailed out later that day, later this Sunday, got his drink on, went back to his car, and now he's driving back to the house, and that's when he gets in a car accident. So at that point, he gets in a car accident, and I guess he decides it's time to go, cut his throat. But I guess I had pulled up, so he stopped at that point. And then when I was walking back up to the car, he starts doing it again. Now, as he's literally doing this as I'm at his window trying to figure out what to do. And I was calm. I'm just trying to figure out how to approach this very quickly. So he puts the knife inside his throat, and he's sawing and pulling.
Gosh.
Steve, was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Now, during this entire interaction from beginning to end, the guy never made a sound, never screamed, never yelled, never said, ouch, nothing. So he's literally sawing his throat.
Whoa.
So the first thing I thought was I could break the rear door window, go in there. But then I'm like, if he somehow gets to step on me and starts stabbing me and I have to, take my gun out, the first thing you're going to say is, why'd you put yourself in that position? And obviously I have to stop this. So what I did was, it's January, he's got a winter coat on. I pull out my taser and I hit him. I had to go high. So one prong is in his head, one prong's in his neck. And it was so funny. As soon as I hit him, all I thought was the hangover. I'm like, in the face.
Did it work?
It worked, but the problem was every time I would cycle it, excuse me, and I had cycled it 6 times, his muscles are contracting. So he's stopping, but he's still holding a knife. And as soon as he ended the cycle, he would go back to doing it again. And then what he started doing was stabbing himself right down the side of his face. I don't know why he didn't try his eye, but there was probably 40 stab marks down his face when this was finished.
Wow.
So now I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to do something else. Now, the fire chief had got an axe out of his car. He broke the passenger side. My partner hits him with his taser. So now he's got a prong on this side, on his right side, and his neck. So there's 2 prongs in his forehead. There's 2 prongs in his neck. We're hitting him one after the other. I think he hit him like 2 or 3 cycles.
Terrible.
And as it's going on, again, I'm calm as, in my head, I'm calm as can be. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I took out my asp. I didn't extend it. And I just start hitting him in the head as hard as I could.
Yeah.
I'm like, this has to stop him.
Just knock him out.
Finally, he doesn't make a peep, doesn't tell me to stop, doesn't scream. He just drops a knife. I'm like, get out of the car. So he literally just opens the door casually, gets out. Blood is pouring off of this guy. I don't know how he misses major arteries, because it was a cop. We would have been dead. And literally, I cuff him up. Paramedics are right there already. They bandage him. And I brought him to the hospital. He was fine. He lived. The first thing that the head nurse says is, why did these cops tase him in the face? Like, lady, look at him.
You weren't there.
The condition he's in. Yeah. Don't you think there's probably a backstory as to why this all happened?
Yeah.
But he survived. It's nothing I've ever seen. And he never said a word the whole time.
Dude, that's insane. That is definitely one of the craziest ones I've heard.
It was nuts. As it's going down, I'm like, I can't believe this shit's happening.
Yeah.
It was insane. And if he had made a sound and screamed at me, it probably would have lessened it a little bit. But the guy, he's sawing his neck and not making a sound. And I think he was just drunk. I don't think he was high as well. It's crazy.
Wow. Talk about That's nuts. Probably just drunk too. And he's like, well,
I think he was just drunk.
I'm not getting 2 DUIs. Might as well end it all.
Exactly. You couldn't even do that right. Sorry to,
damn,
be
man.
facetious here, but
And did you have to do the collar on that one after all? Probably.
no. She handled the arrest portion. It was basically still just a DUI. He didn't do anything to me. He didn't threaten me.
Right.
It was all self-inflicted wounds. So I just handled the car accident. She did everything else. And I never heard about it again.
So he perfect. So he gets
yeah, exactly.
Obviously he gets like whatever that state's. We have a section 12, so that involuntary committal to the psych ward in the hospital. So obviously they probably did that to him, and she charged him later or brought him. Did she bring him back to booking afterwards, or? Or do you
what did she do? No, she just he got admitted in for treatment, and I'm assuming we just had someone sit on him until he was able to get arraigned. So at that point, we would transport him over to jail.
Right, try to get his blood or something.
For a few days.
Yeah.
So crazy,
dude. That is crazy.
Yeah, that was nuts. And I've seen some crazy stuff. That was the craziest.
Damn, I always wondered that about Taser, because they say you got to have that spread and to get the neuro decapacitate, whatever they call it, neuro lock in the back or whatever. You want the big spread, and you want to go in the trunk of the body. But I know guys hit, like when I worked on Cape Cod, a park ranger hit a guy, and he had like a puffy coat on. And the guy just was like, ooh, like bees were stinging him. It didn't lock him.
Yeah.
But I always wondered, like, if you hit the face and the neck, I mean, it's got to hurt like hell. But it seems like it was locking him a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it worked every cycle. His whole body would lock up. And the problem was he would make a fist, hold the knife. Yeah. And as soon as it ended, he'd go back to stabbing himself.
Damn, man.
Nuts.
At this point, you're probably not, in this point in your career, you're like, that was a solid use of force. You're not even worried about it.
I wasn't sweating it at all.
You're worried about the fist fight in the hood, but this one, you're like, yes, whatever.
Yeah, not at all. Listen, I prevented him from killing himself, so it wasn't as though he was hurting me and I was going overboard. I mean, I had to do whatever I had to do to stop this guy from killing himself.
Yeah, really sad. Really sad, especially the whole part about being quiet. It's like, man, it's just so sad a human can get to that point where they're just, just quietly trying to kill him off himself because of like a couple mistakes.
Yeah,
and who knows what else he had going on in his life, but
yeah, I have no idea. I was just glad that he didn't come out of the car with the knife and make me do a suicide by cop, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's like the most selfish thing those guys do.
And I was thinking that's what he was going to do in my mind. I'm like, he's coming out of his car with that knife, and I'm going to have to drop him.
Right.
And I was just hoping he wasn't going to do that.
Well, thank goodness. It sounds like the best outcome possible. I mean,
yeah, for everyone. I mean, he lived, he survived. I didn't have to use any force other than that, and we were good. It was so funny too because I had to. You go to the pistol range and they download your taser, and for people that don't know it, you can download the amount of cycles. How many times you pull the trigger, how long it's cycled for each time.
Sure.
And it could be used as evidence in court or whatever. And I was telling these guys a story, and they were blown away.
Yeah, I bet.
And they hit everything as well. So it was, like I said, it was one of those things where anyone would, I don't care how much time on, was like, holy shit.
That's nuts, man. Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, in one of the towns I worked for there, before I got hired there was, and these are little towns, this guy went after his, I know that because we were clearing evidence recently because our evidence has had too much, and there was this big bloody knife, and I'm like, oh, what was this from? And the chief was like, oh, and he told me the story, but same thing. This guy was following his girlfriend. They were in a big fight. They came to a stop sign. He gets out and starts stabbing the side of his car with a knife. She locks the doors, obviously. Neighbor calls the cops. Cop comes. Guy goes in his car, takes a knife, and jams it up in his chin into the top of his mouth. And this is like small town USA, so everybody's out like, what the hell?
Jesus, impaled himself. That's crazy.
Yeah, totally nuts. Crazy stuff. Mike, can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call?
Yeah, so I guess as far as I had two that are pretty good, so I'll give you the first one.
Sure.
Myself and another guy that dispatched to a rooming house. One of the residents is threatening to kill everyone. So we get in there. And it was just older guy who's probably mid-50s. I think he was about 5'8", 150, 160 pounds, but just shredded. So he's in there yelling at everyone. He's going to kill everyone. I'm like, listen, bro, calm down. Fuck you, da-da-da-da-da, trying to calm him down. And finally, one of the residents passes by, and she's like, I'm going to fucking murder you. I'm like, one more time, and you going. And he's like, I think he said the same thing to me. F you, I'll kill you too. I'm like, all right, now you going. So I told him he was under arrest, and he grabs the threshold of the door. Now, typically, one of my moves is if it's face to face, I will take my right arm, go underneath his, I will come over his left shoulder. I will put my other hand on top, and then 99% of men I have no problem. I just put him down, 1, 2, 3. I literally did that move, and this guy was 150 pounds probably, and I couldn't even budge him. And unbeknownst to me, he's on PCP.
Ooh,
so he had like
Superman drug.
Strength.
Yeah,
exactly. So with that, the fight was on. I just punched him in the face, and now we're squaring off. We probably exchanged 8 times. He didn't hit me once, but I was getting off great shots. I mean, I was snapping his head back, doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I've never been scared. This fear that creeps in every now and then.
Sure.
But during this fight, I'm literally like, what am I supposed to do? I'm giving this guy the best I have, and it's doing nothing.
Yeah.
So it was, a little bit scary. And the guy I was with went to pepper spray, and we're in a room about 10 by 12. I'm like, don't spray that. So he puts it away, and we exchange a couple more times. He picks up a pipe. I draw my gun. That voice you saw in my head said, kill him. So as I'm coming up with the weapon, he drops the pipe. So now I reholster my gun.
Yeah.
And the fight's on again. And now the guy I was with deploys the pepper spray. So, of course, it doesn't really affect the perp. It affects he and I. Can't see, tearing up.
Oh, I hate it.
Snot running everywhere. Yeah, it's horrible. And now we start withdrawing from the room. Just a little tactical retreat. And then I'm like, F this. So he's kind of shutting the door on us as we're pulling back. So I nail the door open, kick him with a front kick in his groin, took him off the ground. It was the greatest kick I've ever had. He bends over and he just goes and squares off again. And at that point, I'm like, there's no way, man. If I don't shoot him, there's nothing I can do to affect him. So we just let him go back in the room. Help call was already in. The troops got there. And the craziest thing about that was the troops roll in. And we had this one unit called Red Dog, who's 4 guys that was a street drug unit. And they would have 4 guys in the car. And those 4 roll up, open the door, and they said he was like the nicest guy. Okay, man, stands up, puts his hands behind his back. He's like, what's going on, guys? My buddy comes down, like, laughing. He's like, you're not going to believe how this guy just acted. I'm like, what? Bro, it was like a fight for my life like 5 minutes ago, man. It was unbelievable.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, that's like fighting like Superman or something. They just like a zombie.
It really is. For those who have done it, you guys know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who are not, there was nothing scary than giving a man your best, especially a guy that was so much smaller than me, and it did absolutely nothing. So again, it's incumbent upon you to learn how to fight, because if I didn't know what I was doing, this guy probably would have killed me. He would have gotten my gun. I don't think I would have been able to stop him with his strength.
Damn, that's nuts. Yeah, there was a guy that was on here, Rob McCreary, Pomona cop and K9 guy. He was like the first episode actually, and he fought a guy in PCP. He ended up shooting a guy 5 or 6 times in the chest with a .45, and the guy was still fighting. I mean, scary stuff, man. Like it just somehow keeps circulating your blood. You're just amped.
Yeah, it sounds like that FBI shooting in Miami in '86 that actually led to them developing a 10 millimeter because they wanted a bigger round. I think the guy got shot like 5 or 6 times, and he was still putting guys down. Or the Hollywood bank robbery.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys got shot multiple times. They were high on, I don't know if they were on meth or what they were taking, but, it's got to be the craziest feeling to put multiple rounds in a human being, and he's just still coming at you.
Yeah, dude, that video is. They showed us to an academy, and they had like AKs with drums, and I remember this going up, just passing by the front of a hood, and the hood just like crumpled. It was like, the cops were going to local gun stores, being like, "Give me an AR-15," and dude, and then the city gets sued because they didn't give proper care to one of the victims in the street, and they lost like millions of dollars because they didn't help the guy. Yeah. They lost.
I remember them sitting there, but they had to make sure that, I don't want to get into the case or anything like that. But after that, paramedics are not entering that scene until it is 100% safe. And if I was, frankly, if I was a paramedic, I would not be running in there to help him as quickly as it was asked.
Yeah. That's true. Staging is huge now. They stage for everything now. I don't blame them either. Like, I'm not going to go in there with the 5'11" pants and a nylon belt, in a pair of cloth shears in my thigh pocket.
I got my shears on me.
Right. Luckily, I do work with some. There's some pretty big firemen in our area, and they will. If you're alone and it's a mental health thing, and the person has to be like 4-pointed, they step right in. They're like, "I'll give you." Nice. They just pin them down. I'm like, "All right, boys, thank you."
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, 250, 6'2". Oh yeah, hell yeah. Damn, man, that is nuts. Mike, switching gears a little bit, can you tell us about a positive or heartwarming situation in your career?
Yeah, it was funny. As long as my career was, it took me a while to come up. I was talking to my wife. I'm like, why is it taking so long to come up with heartwarming stuff as opposed to all this crazy stuff that pops in your head instantly? I guess I remember 2 different occasions returning missing persons to the house. One in particular was an Alzheimer's patient. He had actually ventured 9 miles from his house. And I found him kind of wandering one day. I'm driving by and something didn't look right. He's walking down the street, pulled over, just seemed a little bit old. And I don't know what it was about him, but I stopped, started talking to him. I'm like, where do you live? And he's kind of staring at me. I'm like, all right. So ended up, told dispatch what I had. She had said that there was a missing persons report a few precincts away, drove him home. His wife was so appreciative. Another one I had was an autistic child. He brought him back. I brought him back, and the parents were just, obviously just overwhelmed with joy.
Oh yeah.
I guess things like that. As funny as it sounds, nothing's coming to mind that was super heartwarming, which sucks because I've been involved in many that are.
Well, those are great. Those are great ones you just said.
Yeah. Those are fantastic. Especially those families would agree. I just wish I had more, to be honest with you.
No, right now. Dude, some guys don't have any because it's like police work is so negative. They're like,
yeah.
I remember I've said this before, but I can't remember the guest, but he told one about someone getting shot in the head and the kid witnessed it and the blood shot on the kid. But then later the kid came and thanked him. I was like, whew, it's not so heartwarming, but it is kind of, it's like
you take away you can get it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Do you have any advice to new coppers getting on the job, or someone thinking about it, or someone in backgrounds and, they want to try the career?
Absolutely. I actually wrote a few things down. Number one is make yourself hard to kill. And that's going to mean that you're going to have to train, whether it's, as I mentioned before, in the gym, getting strong, cardio being good, learning how to fight. And one thing is I love BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, any ground fighting techniques, wrestling. But I tell guys, just being proficient at ground fighting, for me, is not making you a complete fighter, because there are situations where you do not want to take it to the ground. Multiple perps, big crowds. I can't go through every scenario, but there are scenarios where you really don't want that fight on the ground. And if you're only proficient at ground fighting, you need to have a good stand-up game.
Yeah, be able to strike.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I mean, one little chop to the face can end a fight 1, 2, 3. You need to be good at stand-up, and you need to be proficient on the ground too, in case it goes there. And a lot of times it will. But I think the ground game itself is incomplete. And I'm not putting down a BJJ. I love it. Please, guys, don't take it the wrong way if you train. I just think you need to have somewhat of a stand-up game as well for this job. Let me see. Mental health awareness is huge. I tell guys now, and I'm an advocate for first responders and military vets for PTSD, various traumas that they've suffered. You go through your career and you're going to see heartbreaking things. And I've never, I had PTSD, and going back and looking at it was never really things that happened to me. Thank God I was never a witness to losing, a fellow officer on the job. I've been at scenes where guys had passed away, but we weren't super tight or anything like that. But not to minimize it, but it's me being in the midst of someone else's heartbreaking um,
Yeah.
scenario, whatever it was. One big thing was I had the call that led me to realize I had PTSD was a call that I had buried about a 2-year-old being found floating in a pool,
Mm.
and it was just a heartbreaking scenario. And I really should have. I didn't realize the importance of speaking to someone about that afterwards. I just kind of buried it. We call it compartmentalizing, but we
Yep.
need to get that word out of our vernacular because it sounds like this professional psychological term. We just neatly put these things in a box and lock them away, and
Yeah,
they're
stuff
never
them
going to be
away.
seen
You'll be
again.
fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. It's not like it's burned into your psyche forever, and eventually, when you hit that
Right.
saturation point, it's going to come out of you in all
Everybody
different
wakes
kind of
up
stuff.
sweating in the middle of the night. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. If they can sleep.
Right.
Um, yeah, so mental health awareness is really huge. Be aware of the guys and girls you work with. In February, I just had 2 former coworkers and friends commit suicide a week apart in Suffolk County PD.
Oh,
The sergeant
wow.
killed himself in a preaching locker room.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and he had, after the first guy killed himself, the sergeant had made some statements that really should have got guys kind of listening to what he was saying.
yeah.
But, unfortunately, we are of the mindset that showing emotion is weakness. And that's one thing, like, I want to empower guys and tell them that it's not, it's actually strength. If you can feel, and it's tough to do sometimes, trust me, I know, you callous up because you can't absorb everyone else's pain. But when you callous up so much you feel nothing, it is, you're a human first. Your title may be police officer, that's your
Right.
job. But as human beings, we're supposed to feel emotion.
You
And
definitely don't look like a guy that would be taking care of his feelings.
no, no, that's. I trust me. I know I have this meathead look, have the tats, and I'm like 235. And in I've journeyed with ayahuasca, and that kind of helped me. That really helped me with my
Yeah,
PTSD
please
journey.
talk about how you healed it. I mean, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
absolutely. So I'll just quickly, if I can, with the advice: learn the law to young guys and girls because
Yep.
the law can be used as a weapon. And more importantly, is these guys are recording you and they're pushing you and they're asking you, do you have reasonable articulable suspicion to do this, or, are you legally allowed to detain me? Know the law so you know when you can detain people. Know the
Great
law when you
point.
have reasonable suspicion. You need to be able to articulate why you did what you did. And if you know the law, they could have 100 cameras on you. They put it on me. I'm like, yo, bro, just make sure you get my good side. I knew the
Right.
law. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't intimidated by it. And if you're that well versed, you're not going to be intimidated by anything they're saying or doing to you because people will try and intimidate you out of doing your job.
Yeah, great point.
Um, Thank you. What else? Just develop good habits. Watch officers that you respect and most people respect. Use little pieces of what they do to incorporate it into them as you as a whole, as a police officer, because that's what you're going to do during your career. You're going to know the street cops, see what they do well. You're going to know detectives, supervisors. Just pay attention to the ones that are really good at their job and do what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if you have questions, ask them, man. They'll tell you. Go to them for help. Don't have this ego that stops you from learning more. You should learn every day. I remember I was 27 years in, and a 21-year-old recruit, I forgot what it was, and he told me or showed me. And I'm like, see, brother, I'm like, I'm not too old to learn. You just got on this job 5 minutes ago, and you just taught me something.
Yeah.
Never have that arrogance about you that no one else could teach you anything.
I've always had
So,
so much respect for cops, like a 25, 30-year cop, maybe a lieutenant or even a chief that would like get a couple of us together and like be like, is we're good. This is good to go, right? Like whether it be a warrant or something, you know what I mean? And then like, because they're like, either they hadn't done it in a long time or they hadn't been involved in something like that. And they just want to check with you guys, the guys working. And it's like, damn, man, the guy's got no ego. He's like, he legit wants the answer. He just doesn't know. And why would he? He doesn't do this all the time. You know what I mean? Like
yep.
that makes my, my respect grow for somebody immensely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Humility is a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, it's rare, especially you see these upper echelon guys think they know it all, have been on the street in like 15, 20 years, and then they go down to, a situation or a scene and they're, barking orders like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's totally wrong, number one. Just back up. Just sit there with your white shirt. Let us do the work. Trust, we'll be fine.
You can tell they feel like they have, like they have to do it to be worth anything. They're like, "Oh, well, I'm the
Exactly.
boss, so I got a boss. I'm gonna say something here." It's like, take it easy, brother. You got good guys doing it. If you even go, you can just check it out and don't get involved.
Yeah, exactly. It's even better. Stay away. So, yeah. So as far as my plant-based journey, so I'll just go back to September 22nd of 20. I had injured my back on duty. I was helping 500-pound woman up the stairs. And yeah, she had actually called it in and she was 450, but a little bit bigger than that.
It's a lot of weight on hoof.
And yeah, she's a big girl. And I was helping her up the stairs. I don't know how I got the back. The rookie was in the front, but I'm lifting one of her legs, and biggest edemas I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
She couldn't
poor
lift
woman.
that. So
Yeah,
it was horrible.
brutal.
So we crest the staircase, and we're at the top stair. She puts her right foot down, and all of a sudden I see it sliding backwards. I'm like, there's no way I'm dying like this. So I squat down, and I just kind of blasted her up the stairs. But when I did that, I herniated 4 discs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was it in one shot. And tried conservative treatment, didn't work. Got my first back surgery 6 months later. Went back to work light duty 6 months after that. We knew that it wasn't going to solve all the problems, and it didn't. I couldn't sit at a desk and type, so went out again. Got a spinal fusion a few months after that, and then they medically retired me. I was 54 years old with a spinal fusion. They would not put me on the street again. So I went out in October of 22, retired me. But I had to go another year as well on a workers' comp case. So for 3 years, I wasn't allowed to work, wasn't allowed to volunteer, wasn't allowed to go to the gym. They videotape you, so they'll follow you. If they videotape you getting into the car too smoothly, they'll present that as evidence. Like, see, he's not injured. Although I had, MRIs, 2 surgeries, I'm 54 years old. They still do their thing. So I was a man without a purpose and a purpose-driven individual.
I can imagine.
So I started not feeling myself. Started, I guess, getting a little bit of depression, a little bit of anger going on. I'm very self-aware. I knew I wasn't myself, but I wasn't sure what was going on.
Yeah.
And, I'm no longer a part of this thing I was for 30 years. I'm no longer this thing for 30 years. I no longer have the brotherhood that I had. And the camaraderie was the biggest part of the job that I loved. So, all this is going on, and you realize it, but I'm not. So about 6 months after that, I'm watching Sean Ryan podcast. For those who don't know, Sean Ryan is a retired Navy SEAL. He's got a big podcast on YouTube. And he was interviewing a man named Eddie Penny. And he was also a retired Navy SEAL Team 6 guy. And Eddie was recounting the story of the Extortion 17 incident in which a Chinook went down. And in addition to the flight personnel, 17 SEALs were killed, including his best friend. And Eddie's talking about escorting his best friend's body back to his hometown and visibly upset, rightly so.
Yeah.
And as Eddie is recounting the story, I don't know what it was about Eddie recounting the story. I just thought about this 2-year-old found floating in a pool, this call I had a few years ago. And I literally lost it. I started crying like a baby.
Yeah.
And to this day, my first reaction still blows me away. I looked inside my house to make sure that my wife had not returned from food shopping because I was embarrassed to be crying.
Yeah.
It just shows you like how, I don't know if I can't say my priorities were up, but it's unbelievable how you get trained into this mindset that you showing emotion is such weakness.
Yeah.
As men, I was raised with a stern father, so it started with him. Then we go into these warrior professions, and it just continues. So Sean is interviewing him, and Eddie is another guy, because I had seen a few other interviews where he had healed himself using plant-based medicines. And I started paying more and more attention to him. At the time, I'm like, I don't think it's going to work. But at this point, I'm watching Eddie. I'm like, you know what? Who am I to say it's not going to work? These are some of the strongest mentally fortitude men in the world. They're coming back broken. And now they're talking about healing from these medicines. And I knew I needed help. I didn't think traditional therapy was going to do it for me. Speaking to a man or a woman behind a desk, telling them what I've seen and done. I'm like, how are these people going to help? And I realized then, I'm like, I want to journey with ayahuasca. And I did not know that these modalities were available in the U.S., so I told my wife I want to go to Peru. So we actually had plans to go to Peru. It was in the initial planning stages, and then we moved to Florida this past December, during the course of which my wife found a center in Orlando called Soul Quest Ayahuasca. And,
did they have some kind of provisional approval or something for
Yeah,
use?
you know what it is? It's you get exemptions for religious use.
Oh, okay.
So it essentially is sold across ayahuasca church, and they get their religious exemption to use that medicine.
Oh, like peyote and stuff. Same idea.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. So we went this past March, and it was a Friday. It was a weekend, so you drink Friday night, Saturday night. It's a
Dude, were
three
you scared?
ceremony
I'd be so
weekend.
afraid.
I was.
I'm afraid of
I
that stuff.
was. I was nerve sighted. My buddy Wiz Buckley. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a former F-18 pilot. He's got a big. He's big in this first responder vet space. He's got
Yep.
a great organization called No Fallen Heroes. Just I did his podcast, and he had coined that term. Him and his wife, perfect. So yeah, I was nervous. Was not sure what to expect. Um, the guys talk about their experiences, but you have no idea how yours is going to go. And
I'm
I was
afraid
just
like
worried.
Satan would appear and be like, I've been here the whole time with you. I'm like, no!
Satan's like, you scare me. That would have been the worst. Yeah, you have no idea where it's going to take you. I'm like, what happens if something kind of stays? I'm in this psychedelic state, and then my mind just stays there. Like, you have no idea what to
Right.
expect. So, that being said, I guess I was so ready to change myself that I didn't care.
Yeah.
So, you get to that point where you're so sick of your old self or what's going on that you will do anything. And I was fairly confident after seeing all these gentlemen go through it that it would be something that would potentially heal me.
Mm.
So you go there. There's an orientation. They tell you what to expect, kind of like the rules. And shortly thereafter, you go back to the ceremonial area. It's a big yard. There's a fire pit in the middle. On the perimeter is lights and speakers. They have very mellow music, and they have two buildings in case people want to go in quiet areas during their journeying. They could go in there. So what it is ayahuasca is comprised of two vines from the Amazon, and the crazy thing is there's 80,000 vines in the Amazon forest. Someone, I don't know if it's God or the universe, whatever higher being you want to use, told whoever first came up with ayahuasca to use these two specific vines because one's an MAO inhibitor and the other one produces psychedelic effects. And if you don't use both, then it doesn't work. So,
Weird.
yeah, it's crazy. It's insane. And the fact that these two were actually put together for the first time. It's hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. It's very sacred medicine. It's been going on for I think, thousands of years, actually. So what they do is they essentially boil the vines, and the juice that comes from them is, that drains out, is the ayahuasca that you're going to consume. And it's essentially like a shot glass that they serve it in. You drink it, and for me, it took about 45 minutes before the effects started hitting.
That must have
30
been
minutes in,
intense. You're waiting there for 45 minutes. Like, is that normal? Is that?
yeah,
Am
I'm
I
waiting
seeing
there for
something yet?
45, and like after 30, I'm kind of getting angry. I'm like, son of a bitch, don't tell me this isn't going to work for me.
Right.
But about 45 minutes in, the ground started moving. I'm like, here we go. And it's funny because I say words dilute the magic when I speak about this. It's something that's got to be experienced. Obviously, I'm going to recount my story, but it's just incredible. So, on my journey, essentially, it was like I was looking at a big screen TV, and most people detect a motherly presence, a female presence. They call her mother or mother ayahuasca. And yeah, she was in my journey. She was in like the top left-hand corner. And yeah, I remember I was crying a little bit, and I put my arms up, and I was like, I surrender to you. Please tell me what I have to do. Like, I want to be a better man. I need to lose this ego. I want to lose this anger. I want to lose this rage. And it was like everything I asked for when I asked for it was given. And I could just feel like this. I was just like shedding this weight. One thing after the other that I would ask for was just gone.
Wow.
It was miraculous. And at one point in my journey, my father and I always had a contentious relationship. He's deceased. And she was bringing him to me in my journey. And as she's doing this, the music that is playing in the ceremonial area starts building. And it wasn't a reality. And it finally builds to this crescendo, and it stops. And reality is still going on. And now I'm waiting for my dad to show up, and I'm just kind of looking. Although I was in front of the brightest Las Vegas marquee, and I'm standing there waiting for him, and I'm waiting. Finally, I realize he's not going to show, and I'm like, effing coward. I knew he wouldn't show. He could not talk about his feelings. But 55 years of everything between he and I was just thrown off my shoulder, like instantaneously released. It was nuts.
Wow.
And it was nuts ever since that day. any memories that have between he and I, like the emotional charge is just gone. Is the memories? There's nothing else attached to them. It's not like this anger I have thinking of them or anything. And during the course of which, I don't know if to me it was the universe speaking to me, and and I was talking about the ayahuasca, and I was saying, listen, I have this fire in me, it's still here, and with that comes like this rage and hatred and everything else, and I don't need any of it anymore. And she literally told me, she's like, you are a warrior. You will always be a warrior, but that fire is now down here. And everything that comes along with it is down there too. And if you ever need to call on it, it will be there. But you don't need it anymore. You're not that thing. Your career is over. And it was like, I just became at peace with it instantly. Like, yeah, I'm not that thing anymore. I
Wow.
put it to rest. And at the end of the journey, this is like one of the most powerful things. She told me that I healed you from your PTSD, and it's not that I think I'm healed; it's an ever-evolving process. But I was healed in many respects. But she said your life's purpose is now to go forth and heal other first responders and vets from theirs. And I literally said, okay. And I wasn't sure how I was going to implement it, but I knew that was my life's purpose from that point on. And it is. It was so clear to me at that precise moment, and I've journeyed with Aya 6 additional times. And every time I do, it's a reinforcement of I'm supposed to be here doing what I'm doing, working with these first responders and vets.
Wow, man. What is the success rate for first responders? Or maybe it's not quantified, but can you give like a unofficial answer to that? Like, does it help most people?
Steve, I've not spoken to. All right, let's see. So I'll put it this way: I've only spoken to one vet who said he did not really feel anything because I've attended a few vet and first responder only ceremonies. There's only one guy that I had heard because we'll do integration the next day, and that's essentially where you're around in a circle and you're each recounting what brought you there, how your journey was, what you're going to do going forward. I've only heard one guy say that he really didn't have too much um, of a cathartic journey.
Hmm.
Everyone else that I've spoken to, and we're talking a lot of people, said that this was the most profound cathartic thing and it healed them. I remember at one integration, there was two vets that both said they were suicidal going there, and both of them said they no longer had that ideology. They felt great. One guy said he's never felt, cannot remember the last time he's felt happy. It's been years and years and years. He woke up happy that morning. Just story after story. I would say that I know of, if I throw that one guy in there, maybe brings it down to a 95% success rate. And that's not to say that you're solved and you're healed and you have nothing,
Right.
at that point in your psyche or that you need to heal from further. And it's an everyday process too. You need to, whether it's journal or train or, still speak to someone or whatever the case may be, it's an ongoing process. Don't think you're going to drink, everything's going to be solved, and you're just going to go back to your life and that's it. This mental health is an ever evolving, thing. It's something you need to do every
Yeah.
day, like lifting it. So, but it's like 10 years of therapy in one weekend.
Wow, that's incredible, man. I've also heard of and I guess this is just real fringe studies, but like micro dosing mushrooms for people with like, real severe mental problems. And that's really promising. There's like, it does something to the chemical balance in the brain or something, and I don't know if microdosing means you're not going on like a full journey, but it's doing something, which is fascinating. It's so neat. They're studying this stuff now.
Yeah, there's actually studies going on right now. I know that there was a study presented to the FDA a few months ago in order to get it approved for use in treating soldiers. Unfortunately, I don't think that study had a few mistakes, and the drug was not approved. But psilocybin on the whole has been shown to increase neuroplasticity, increase brain synapses, um, create neurogenesis, which is actually rejuvenation of brain cells. For many years, you were always told that once brain cells die, you can't develop new ones. Now they're seeing that that is not the case.
Yeah.
Um, Microdosing is very, very promising. I've done it myself. It's not something you really feel, as opposed to where you're taking a higher dose or a hero's dose of psilocybin.
Right.
But its effects are just to have increase overall happiness. It increases cognitive function. I mean, there were so many positive things attributed to it, and it's not. It's funny because all these plant-based medicines are not ripe for abuse, and it's amazing that there's still a stigma to using them. When I remember at one retreat I attended, I was talking to Green Beret who was on. He had been prescribed 17 meds at one point. Another
Oof.
Army Corpsman, 11. There's no stigma about prescribing these guys 17 medications. The guy said he felt
Yeah.
nothing on a daily basis, but
Yeah,
there
to
is
shut
for
off
a
your
plant
emotions.
based. Yeah, yeah, literally. I mean, I've never taken any SSRIs or antidepressants, but to a man or a woman, everyone says they make you feel nothing,
Yeah.
and
That's not what
there's no
life's
stigma
about.
attached to that. No, not at all. You're supposed to
Yeah.
be feeling, and then you see these plant based medicines that are curing people in one or two journeys, and it's miraculous. Whether it's ibogaine or ayahuasca or psilocybin, bufo. I mean, there's peyote. There's so many different modalities to be
That's
used.
crazy.
It
My
really
biggest fear
is.
is that like someone like Pfizer or Moderna or whoever they do have the money and ability to get things approved, and they will make some synthetic thing that they claim is the same thing but gives you cancer in 20 years. You know what I mean? Like they're going to do their
Yeah,
thing and jam that down people's throats. But I guess if you got to use the stuff that's from the earth. You
exactly.
can't be. I mean, I was even reading about. I took vitamins for years, and I read it like 5 years ago. I read that, or my wife read and told me like, oh, these vitamins are actually synthetic. I'm like, synthetic? What does that mean? She's like, well, they made up compounds that like mimic what vitamin B and D. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. Like it sounds like these are chemicals. So now I take a
Yeah,
vitamin that is like made of whole foods, but it's dehydrated and crushed down, and it's more expensive, and you have to take more of them. But it's like with the cancer rates and all the other diseases going on, it's like I'm putting chemicals in my body. I didn't even realize it for years.
yeah,
It pisses you off. It's like, what the hell?
yeah. Absolutely. We have no idea what we're putting in our bodies. And to echo your sentiments about the pharmaceutical industry, I guarantee it's exactly what's going to happen. I'm sure the lobbyists are in these politicians' ears, like don't approve anything. We're
Right.
working on synthetic versions. I saw Andrew Huberman the other day say that he thinks pharmaceutical companies are going because they know that it works as far as psilocybin. So they're going to create a synthetic version that does not have a psychedelic component to it just to be able to keep people on them for longer. Because he's like,
Yeah.
the last thing they want is someone to be using this medicine once or twice and then they're cured.
Right.
They
The nice
want
thing
to
about our
keep them on
medicine
it.
is you got to go on it for 30 years, and it's not going to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's amazing. But pharmaceutical companies run the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that's scary
Sad
stuff,
fact.
brother. Man, this has been an incredible interview, brother. I mean, this was
Absolutely.
everything you talked about was so friggin' interesting and fun. It's an honor to have you on, Mike. Thank you so much.
Honor to be here. Thank you very much.
How can the folks reach out to you, follow you, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so my biggest platform is my Instagram, Team Morgs Inc. So TEAM_MORGS_INC. It's basically my platform. Everything's launched off of there. I think I'm going to be launching a YouTube channel very soon.
Nice.
Not yet done, but in the works. And as I was speaking to you before, I started doing lives now. I want to start public speaking, but did a live a couple of weeks ago with a former Navy SEAL named Zach Ferguson. It went phenomenally well. We got crazy feedback. So I think we're going to make it a regular. We have plans now, probably next week. We're going to interview a former Navy SEAL named Travis Lively. I did one a few days ago with Taylor Kavanaugh, who's
Awesome.
yeah, pretty popular. And I think it's a way, one of the things that I want to make a permanent thing where I'm doing podcasts about mental health because there's so many guys and girls going through it that need to be helped. There's
Yeah.
unfortunately no shortage. And, again, it's my life's purpose. I've never been so passionate about anything in my life. And I've had passionate projects before.
I love it, brother. Every man needs a mission, and it looks like you got yours. It's a very virtuous
Absolutely.
one. I love it, man. Again, thank you so much for coming on. All the links to get at Mike will be in the top of the show notes. So you can do that easily. I got to do the outro, brother. Can you hang on for like 2 or 3 minutes?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll be right with you. The great Mike Morgan, guys. Wow. Crazy stories. What a journey he's been on. So friggin' fascinating and interesting. Honored to have him on. Guys, thank you for all the rating and reviewing. Just keep doing it. Just do the 5-star on Apple or Spotify or wherever you're at. You don't have to leave a review. Just do the 5-star. I love that. If you really love the show and you want to support it, you can do that on Patreon. The link is in the show notes. There's a few different levels you can do. You'll get Cops in the News 2 times a month, and you'll get early ad-free releases of the episodes. So that's if you really love it and you've enjoyed like a bunch of the free content and you want to support, because there are some expenses that come with the show, including me not being able to take overtime shifts and stuff like that when I schedule interviews. So I appreciate you, but rest assured the show will remain free, because the idea is that as many people as possible will hear the men and women of law enforcement tell their incredible stories. This is the time in the show when I thank the Patreon supporters. Who I'm talking about is Captain Jamin Jack, Security 101. Check them out. Thank you, sir. Captain Andy Biggs. Thanks, brother. The great and powerful Andy Biggs. The great Tom Connell. Lieutenant Tom Connell. Thank you, sir. Adam McMahon. These are the sergeants. Adam Mehall, Ben Peters, the great Brad Thompson, Dan Carlson from Burley Boys, check him out, amazing woodworker, the great Chris June, Clark Luckhoff, everybody, the great Dave Ellman, Dennis Carrasquillo, ladies and gentlemen, Detective Nick Adams, thank you, sir, Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys, see you at church, Dylan Mosher, thank you, sir, the great Elliot Sykes, the great Gary Steiner, ladies and gentlemen. George Carey Otis, everybody. Thank you, sir. Greg Gadboy, ladies and gentlemen. J.A. Family and Company. Thank you. Jake Pinedo, everyone. The great James Rose. The great Jason Labrie, everybody. None other than Jason Lau. Jessica King, everybody. The great John Jordan. John Shoemaker, ladies and gentlemen. John and Kate. Love you guys. See you at church. Thank you very much. The great Justin King. Kyle Roberts, everybody. Kyle Napier. The great Lauren Simpson. The handsome Lane Campbell. Lisa G. Thank you for joining. Michael Roach of Roach Machine AI Solutions. Check him out. Iceman from Motor Cop Chronicles. Check him out. Nancy Hammond, ladies and gentlemen. The great Paul Maloney. Past guest. Great stories. The handsome Raymond Arsenal, everyone. Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, brother. The great Sasha McNabb. Scott Young, Sean Clifford, Seth Wright, Sheriff Ronald Long, everybody. Thank you, sir. The great Tammy Walsh, holding it down at dispatch. Tony Fahey, William James Long. That's Deputy William James Long to you. Thank you very much. The great Zach Haney, Zachary Pleat, everybody. And the great George Tessier. I will see you at church, brother. Whew, guys, the list is getting long, and I surely appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.